So let's talk about that big number. You know the one. For a lot of us, it's $1 million. But man, when you're just starting out, looking at that mountain from the very bottom, it can feel completely overwhelming. Almost like, why even bother?
So let's really think about this journey. You're working hard, you're saving, and then you hit it. Your first big milestone, $100,000. But what does that really mean? I mean, how much of the race have you actually run?
Well, if you just look at the numbers, the answer seems kind of obvious, right? 100 grand is just 10% of $1 million, so you're 10% of the way there. Simple.
But here's the thing. That simple math, it's totally misleading. Because when we talk about what really counts, your time, your effort, all that sacrifice, that first 100,000 is so much more than just 10%. And honestly, getting this is the secret to sticking with it when it feels like you're going nowhere. To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to ditch the idea that this is some kind of straight, flat race. It's not. A much better way to picture it, imagine you're pushing a massive boulder up a really steep hill.
This image just captures it perfectly, doesn't it? The beginning is absolutely brutal. You feel every single muscle straining. It's a total grind. But, and this is the magic part, once you struggle and finally get that thing to the peak of the hill, momentum just takes over.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. Why is that first part such a grind? What's actually happening with your money during this heavy lifting phase?
Here's the stark reality. When you're building up to that first 100K, a whopping 90% of that growth comes from one place, and one place only, you. It's the money you save, the money you put in. The market, your investments, they're barely giving you a nudge at this point.
So think about that. It is all on your shoulders. You are the engine driving this whole thing forward. Every single dollar in that account is there because of your own hard work and discipline. The magic of the market hasn't really started to help out yet. This is that brutal push we're talking about.
But here's the good news. All that pushing, all that grinding, it gets you closer and closer to the top of that hill. You're getting to the tipping point. And that's where this incredible invisible force starts to take over. A force that's all about a simple mathematical secret.
And that secret? It's compound interest. It's the simple but unbelievably powerful idea that your money starts making its own money. The returns you earn start generating their own returns. It's a snowball effect.
This right here, this is the force that gets your boulder over the top of the hill. It's what transforms that painful uphill struggle into a thrilling, effortless downhill roll. It's the payoff for all that heavy lifting you did at the start.
And this is where it all clicks. Just look at this timeline. Let's say with steady savings, it takes you about 7 years to grind out that first 100 grand. Okay, but then look what happens. It takes that same 7 years to pile on the next 300,000. Then just 4 more years to add another 300. And then it's only 3 years to get to that $1 million finish line. The speed is it's breathtaking.
So there you have it. That first $100,000, it's not 10% of the journey, not even close. When you measure it in what really matters, your time, it's nearly 1/3 of the entire 21-year journey. Let that sink in. The hardest part is, by a long shot, the longest part.
All right, so what's it like on the other side of that hill? What happens once you've passed that tipping point and the boulder really starts to roll?
Well, to put it simply, everything flips. The whole dynamic between how hard you have to work and how hard your money is working for you, it gets turned completely on its head.
And this chart just shows it so clearly. Remember that first chart we looked at? Now check this out. For the final $100,000, the sprint from 900K to a cool million, your money is doing 90% of the work. Your savings are now just a tiny sliver. That boulder you were pushing? Yeah, it's basically an avalanche now.
You're not the one pushing anymore. Not really. What you've done is you've built a machine, a wealth-building engine, and now it's running all by itself. It's picking up speed, generating its own power, and you don't have to be there pushing it every single day. And that feeling of momentum is just wow. The numbers start to leap up in ways you just couldn't imagine back at the beginning. You blink, and suddenly you see 700,000.
You look up again a little while later, and bam, it's 800,000.
And then it feels like no time at all, and you're at 900,000. The amount of money your investments are making for you is it's way more than you could possibly save in a year. That is what momentum feels like. So this really changes how you should think about the goal, right? The goal isn't just save money. The real goal is to use your savings to build a machine,
A machine that, once it's up and running, does the heavy lifting for you.
And that really leaves us with one big question to think about. Knowing now that the very beginning is the hardest, longest part of the climb, that it's the part that demands the most from you, how does that change how you approach your own climb? How will you tackle that first big push?